Hey guys, I'm here with the fourth part together with Kassra. Today it's 30 degrees up here in northern Germany. We just had some donor to get our strength back, and that's why we're getting back into the groove now. We just also talked about getting into the red light district, and I'd like to start again with a question. Are you also to blame for the misery of the women?
Of course, I encouraged it, took part in it, benefited from it, of course.
Because the machinery of the
The machinery was a part of the whole.
no guilt. That's just how it was. She wanted it too. I know the usual excuses. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Of course.
We both benefited. She wanted it. I rent.
A room she wanted to, or she offered herself to me. Of course, there are plenty of those. Naturally, yes, I was involved and did my part.
You already hinted at it in the last part. Now there has also been a serious act of violence, and then you also faced your first time in prison. What was that like?
What happened was, back then I was invited by some Albanian brothers. They were well known among us, actually really nice guys. Their father opened a bar in Glashütte, that's a suburb or a small place near Norderstedt. And I went there, I was there, we had something to drink. I was never a big drinker, so just a little was enough for me. And I was already a bit tipsy, as they say. And then I went there, walked back that bit, took the subway, and back then I didn't have a driver's license or anything, so I took the subway a little tipsy, but still pretty clear, not completely drunk or anything, just a bit, yeah, I was in a good mood. Then I walked back with one of the guys who was also at the party. He was a bit younger than me. We walked back and arrived in Garstedt. That was the nearest subway station going in my direction, and we waited for the first train. Back then, I still smoked a bit, cigarettes. I smoked for 2 or 3 years in the beginning, and then I waited and lit a cigarette on the platform. I mean, the subway, it's underground, and that's forbidden, but a lot of people do it, and I did it too. I sat there and waited 10, 15 minutes for the train, however long it was, and at that moment someone else came down and walked past me. Or he had already passed by, then came back. And he said he was pretty drunk, a bigger, older man of German origin. He told me to put out the cigarette and questioned who I thought I was and complained about the same issues with foreigners. I told him to get lost and that I'll smoke how I want. He replied that it's always the same with antisocial people like me. Such derogatory comments. His motivation was good, but his methods were flawed. I think it would have been violent too, the way he would have said it. I think I would have always felt attacked somehow. But that's how it was in that case, and then I said, get lost. I lost interest in him after he left, as he had been talking my ear off. That's just how it goes sometimes, especially in the big city. And then the trains arrived, and the trains in Hamburg, the Hamburger Verkehrsverbund trains, the cars are really close together, you know. But you can look inside the train cars. We're transparent because of the windows. You can look inside and see each other. And then I sat down, facing the direction of travel. He purposely sat in the last row to look at me. I was sitting facing forward while he sat facing the opposite direction. He looked directly at me. That means he was totally looking for confrontation. I noticed it too. But I was tired, exhausted. I didn't feel like dealing with him, so I just ignored him. After only 2 stops, we arrived at Norderstedt-Mitte. I got off, not giving him another thought. And the little boy, the younger one, he was even younger, much younger here, wanted to catch his connecting train to the villages towards Elmshorn, Quickborn, and wherever else. That's called an AKN, or it's still called that. And it only runs every 20 minutes, and he checked when it was leaving and so on. We both looked up at the elaborate display above us, which was common back then. And then it was like, at the moment we looked up and I was checking with him a bit to see when it was leaving, the departure time, I got hit from the side, out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, just like that. A hit on the left side, I looked like this and he saw something shiny. His hand, and he had put the key between his fingers like this, and he slashed my face with it. So he hit me and then slashed like this, really strange. At first I was just stunned. I stepped back, bleeding heavily from my cheek, which was torn open. It's not really sharp, more or less. But it was, it was sharp enough. I mean, the metal still cut me open pretty badly. And then I was just stunned at first. I kind of jumped back a bit from the hit and the whole situation. I was like, what's going on here? I saw that he hit me. He ran away and I chased after him, determined to get him back. When I ran after him, swept his legs out from under him, he went down. Then we scuffled a bit. I landed a few hits on him and then he ran away again. And in Norderstedt Mitte, there's a front exit, a back exit, and there's a middle exit. And the middle exit is a spiral staircase. He then ascended the spiral staircase, and naturally I returned to this specific area. And then he ran up quickly, and I was just about to leave, and then he spat at me from behind, from the side. He hit me too, right here on the side. I felt extremely humiliated. I decided then that I would retaliate against the person responsible. And of course I ran after him. He ran away. He was also pretty drunk. Yeah, and then of course I caught up with him. That happened really fast. And I grabbed him 2 or 3 hits and I had a sharp object. I can't recall the exact moment I took it out. Things like that always happen very quickly, but it also feels very long. It's been almost 20 years now, and then I stabbed him a few times.
That means a sharp object.
It wasn't, I remember, it wasn't a classic knife. It was a Swiss tool, like a Swiss army knife, but I didn't have the blade out. That's what I remember. Later, you could see from the wound, from the expert, that those weren't knife stabs, but probably something like maybe from the can opener.
Yeah, something like that from a pointed...
The wound's shape suggests it wasn't caused by a typical stabbing with a knife.
Yeah, there's this spike, kind of a...
thing, exactly, something like that. It was a spike. I stabbed myself there a few times, even through the jacket and everything. He collapsed after the first kick, and I kicked him a few more times before it ended. He kept trying with me, and then while he was lying there, I ran away. I threw the thing onto the subway tracks while running away. I still remember that. I went home. I went through the door. My mother was already awake. Whenever I came home, she would get up a little, and I was covered in blood. Confused and adrenaline-fueled, she asked what happened. I don't respond. She tells me to come, sits with me in the bathroom, washes my face, applies cream, and instructs me to sleep. I comply. In the morning, around noon, my father enters the room and says, "Boy, get up." I say, "What do you want?" He says, "Get up." I say, "What did you do?" "What did you do?" I say, "Nothing at all." He says, "The whole place is full of police. In the front, in the garden, everywhere." He says, "What's going on here?" and stuff. I say, "Tell me what happened, then I can do something." I say, "Nothing at all, nothing at all." He opens the door, they come in, arrest me right away. And that was it. Then I was taken straight to the magistrate, then to the detention center that's up north. And then an arrest warrant was issued, or rather up north about the arraignment. And then I was still... That was attempted manslaughter. An investigation was initiated. But then it was overturned by the higher regional court because they said it wasn't attempted manslaughter. We don't see that here. There was never a life-threatening injury, but rather it was dangerous bodily harm because of the object involved. Yes, it went to trial, and I was in pre-trial detention for months. And later it turned out, I didn't even know this until the main trial, that he was a criminal investigator, a detective. But he was in plain clothes and, of course, tried to play that card at that moment, but it didn't really work. The court said they were private individuals at that time. I would have been too, the lawyer, the judge said back then, because it was a self-defense situation. You could also see the camera footage, but since I ran toward him in the second act, chased after him, the self-defense situation was no longer present. And so, when he ended up on the losing side, it became a case of aggravated assault. I got almost 3 years, a few months for that, and was then in prison in Neumünster and served my sentence.
Did the officer also get a punishment?
No, he was the victim. Yeah, well, if we talk about it like this now, but legally he was the victim. They said, yeah, now he did this, it wasn't right, but then I also proactively switched back from the self-defense situation. The judge said that too. And because of that, the self-defense situation was no longer valid.
Because?
I mean, if I had done something when I hit him the first time, you could see that it was on the platform, it was all visible. The camera footage was secured. Then he probably would have gotten a charge for assault, but because I ran after him afterwards and it turned into a mutual thing, that kind of case gets dropped quickly.
You told that very quickly just now, so the act of violence, of course, we understand that, okay.
Police arrive.
I was arrested, held in a cell, sent to pretrial detention in Münster, sentenced to 3 years, served my time, and that's it. Done.
Of course, it didn't happen that quickly, but that's just how it was. That's how it was. Actually, it was very fast. So it happened all of a sudden. It went really fast, so you couldn't even...
But how is that? Maybe that's also, or it's interesting for people, but okay, the police come now, they take you with them. What did you think? Okay, I'm just going to the station for now, and then I'll be back home in 2 hours. Picture this. You're in front of a magistrate for the first time, and after reviewing your case, he says, I've looked at your file and the offense. For you, the journey continues in pretrial detention. That moment, you already know it's going to be...
Yeah, above all, I didn't even have that many relevant prior convictions, so that... There were 1 or 2 minor offenses compared to other things and compared to that, and I think it was only once an insult or 2 insults. So it wasn't... I didn't even think, okay, they're arresting me. Back then, they still took fingerprints with
ink
and so on. All that digital stuff didn't exist. I thought, well, then I'll just hand over this pass and get off and then get on the train again. But this time they said, we'll take care of it. Well, I mean, it's up to a judge. But they said, we're taking you to the magistrate now. And then they took me to Neustadt back then. Yeah, and he said, yeah, no, I don't even remember what the reason for detention was.
There are always risks to consider, such as flight risk and evidence tampering.
There was something there, and it was valid too. I filed an appeal back then through my lawyer at the time, Ms. Krieger, though I don't recall her exact name. And yes, then I went from pretrial detention to prison, and then I got out early.
I have to slow you down a bit again, I'm sorry.
New Münster arriving.
Describe to the people what it feels like when you suddenly get there and the gate opens.
Open you are.
You drive in, you come to the intake. Describe that to the people.
Of course, the very first thing you notice is, okay, you don't just get out of this holding cell quickly. You're there the whole day. You spend the night there. They slide in some dark bread with Philadelphia cream cheese and a bowl of water. And you realize, okay, somehow this is heading in a direction where this could actually become something long-term. I had no prior knowledge or experience with being in custody or anything similar. And then you realize something is happening to you right now that you don't know, and it's very negative. The following morning, you were brought before the judge who confirmed that the detention order would continue to be upheld or issued. Because it's already a reason again, but then it's additionally approved by the court for the second time. Yes, then you go straight to transport and on to Münster. For me, my entire world collapsed and the rug was completely pulled out from under my feet. It was unbelievable. I was calm and confused, trying to process what was happening, where I was, and what would come next. I was then taken to the detention center where you're initially exposed to all the influences. The situation paralyzed me. I was there, and like I said, the whole situation completely overwhelmed me, going into the chamber and picking something up. You get photographed, then sit with the social worker upstairs, you introduce yourself, discuss your situation, and that's the process. And those are the things they can do. Do you have any other topics? Should we inform your family? No, okay, all right, good, then you are taken away, brought to the truck where you will be accommodated. And then the door opens, the door closes, and then you sit there in 8 square meters. You have a little bag with you, which literally contains a food bowl, cutlery, a blunt knife, toothpaste and a toothbrush, and a toothpaste, I don't know, I've never seen that before. It's just white, and there's a bit written on it. But that is really strange. I don't know where it comes from, and a piece of soap, and that's it. And a bit of bedding, those blue and white checkered ones.
And then
you sit there, got a few extra clothes, and then goodbye. You sit there and think, what now, goodbye? Door closed, boom, and then you're just left there, just you there. That was... What's the first night like? It was horrible, terrible. I had no idea what was happening here. I was completely overwhelmed. I was completely overwhelmed, and on top of that, I felt totally overburdened. As I said, it was a completely new situation and definitely not a pleasant one. So I was also totally perplexed at first. I needed several days, maybe even a week, just to get used to it a little bit. What came on top of that was, alas, back then it was like this. The institution could decide under what conditions you would be held. So they could order certain things during pretrial detention. That has changed a bit now. They can still do it, but only to a limited extent. Back then, they just decided for themselves, since it was an officer, and I was supposedly, according to their definition, extremely, excessively violent. Normally, they would assume protective custody anyway, but whatever.
But he didn't give you your file at all?
No. They decided it for themselves anyway, which was very possible. They just gave me an SV button, so they put glue on the door as a security seal. That means I am exorbitantly violent and not perceptible. But where they got that from, someone just... Does it also restrict you in prison? That's how they say it in Berlin, hand in hand, hand to hand. And I thought, what is that? And that means you're in prison within the prison. I was only allowed to close my cell door when it was locked, wasn't allowed to take part in recreational activities, couldn't work, no association, couldn't go to the kitchen or anything like that, yard time alone. Really strange situation that went on for 4 months during the day, right? Yeah, of course. Especially when you're new, it feels like a day turns into 48 hours instead of 24 until it's finally over. No television or anything else for a long time, and also no money in there either until something was sent later. And my lawyer said, after 4 months, this is not a tenable situation. And on what bold legal basis, legal reasoning, as you said yourself, the file doesn't support it. And when she put her finger on the wound, they said, okay, all right, we changed the status overnight to normal. And then I was in prison under normal circumstances and things went on. But the first few months were tough. It was crazy what a situation that was.
Did your parents come?
To visit? Yes, they came once a month. And my uncle came too. For them, of course, it was always a complete drama, and the whole thing was also covered a bit by the media, the whole topic that was around 2005 or so. Yes, and then it was pretty much set because I was on my way and first had to find my bearings. I eventually did it, but that was quite something I thought to myself, okay, where is this journey going? What about my future? Where am I headed? What's going to happen to me? How long will I stay here? And all those kinds of things.
But later still contribute to a certain aura.
That you...
Already the time in prison
As a teenager?
has already been inside, and then the
trial came then, I think, after a good 6 months. As I said, they tried to allow the charge for attempted manslaughter, but the court did not allow it because they said that the charge itself does not permit an attempted manslaughter to be prosecuted here. The case was downgraded to the district court, which has a maximum sentence of 4 years. Cases exceeding 4 years are tried in regional court. For me, it was a maximum of 4 years. The trial followed, lasting about a day. And the man was heard, I was heard, or rather I made a statement. Something else. Then the victim was heard and the experts as well. And yes, the judge was just... His interpretation is unique.
But I still have to say, so of course the crime, we're talking about stabbing several times with the thorn and so on, still the act of violence originally came from someone else. Almost no prior convictions, it's already a hefty sentence. That plays a role in it, probably an official. Still.
Everyone can still form their own opinion. I'm interpreting it now.
I'm interpreting it now.
Everyone has to form their own opinion. I understand the approach. For me, of course, it was like... What? Even when the verdict came, I didn't expect such a harsh sentence, but the judge was also... By now, I was AD. He was well known in this judge's city and region. In juvenile detention, the focus is on the individual's development and whether jail is the last resort. They consider if supervised living or other alternatives can positively impact the person's growth as opposed to adult sentencing. Start anti-violence training and so on, but he didn't do anything at all. He just said, nope, 3 years, 10 months. And of course, that was 3 years for unrest. I said, that's almost 4 years. I said, I'm going to be here for almost 4 years now. At the time, I was unaware of 2/3 or early release. For me, it felt like 4 years gone, and my entire world collapsed. That knocked the ground out from under me again. I just sat there for a while. Then it took me another week to pull myself together. And then I was taken into custody, went through the daily prison routine, which is fairly predictable and monotonous. I filed an appeal and they reduced the sentence by 8 months, leaving only 3 years and 2 months to serve. And I served 2/3 of that and then got out, so a little over 2 years.
Served 2 years?
Exactly. But still, I thought, like you said yourself, it was already very ambitious, the whole thing, and now everyone can think what they want about it. I'm not assuming anything for now, but it was very noticeable and very strange, but it held up even in the regional court. So at the end of the day, I put myself in this situation, I did it, and now I can't blame the judge for anything. So don't put yourself in such a situation that no one will have to judge you. If it's obviously unjust, but in this case it wasn't unjust, he was proactive with me, but like I said, the situation was over, and I still went after it again, and that's always a message to the people out there. Self-defense only applies as long as you are being attacked. The moment someone lets go of you and you yourself let go, and the person leaves and wants to leave the place, if you then attack, chase after the attacker, the self-defense situation no longer applies.
It's no longer justified. You become the perpetrator.
Yes, you switch to the role of the perpetrator, and then, if anything, if at all, at most, it's mutual bodily harm. So yes, just always remember, in Germany, everyone has the right to defend themselves, even physically, up to the point. Well, I wasn't aware of being reevaluated. I'm unsure if that knowledge would have altered my actions. And then I just sat there, and for almost 4 years, they had another hearing half a year later. Appeal, reduced it by another 8 months, so it was 3, 2, but it was still 3
years. Did you
use your time in prison for your own development or not yet? I was, developed in the sense of not really, but I was just calm. I didn't cause any trouble. I just wanted to do my time in peace. I didn't want to be in prison. I wanted to get out and never go back to prison again. I was a model prisoner. I didn't cause any trouble, no fights, nothing at all. I then worked my way up to being a house worker. Being a house worker in the prison hierarchy is one of the most desirable positions you can have among the inmates because it's well paid, you have access to everything, you have access to essentials.
Maybe you should explain to people what a house worker is exactly.
A house worker is like the person, like the mom for everything on the ward, takes care of making sure the cells are clean, cleans the hallways, distributes materials on the ward to the other inmates, like toothpaste, the basic things. That means bed linen, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, prison clothes, if the institution provides them. Fetch food, distribute food, and that's all goods in prison. And he's in charge. He also decides who gets how much food somewhere and who gets more or less materials, and he washes the laundry, the bed linen, or hands it out or washes it himself, depending on what kind of ward it is. Some communal wards have personal washing machines, so the main laundry service doesn't handle their laundry. And that's how it is. In the hierarchy, you know it from prison movies too, it's not far-fetched. The ones at the food counter, they're the ones in charge because they have their finger on the most essential basic things for survival. And that's a position of power. It's also a job that you get paid for, it's work. And it's the best paid job compared to the other activities you can do in prison, the work you can do.
And you have
always a direct line to the stuff. That means there's some leeway on an interpersonal level, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you can somehow privilege yourself there. Or
no, that's good, especially later for the 2/3 hearing. 2/3 and also just a simple...
a bit more relaxed. The staff notice, okay, they're never as close to any inmate as they are to the house worker. If you present yourself well in prison, others will be more at ease with you. Communication and interaction are key, and they differ in that environment. That's the job. It's also called Kali, formerly known as Kalkfaktor. Now it's referred to as house worker.
And then in prison, then your release was coming up.
At some point.
You were probably facing nothing. The thing with the women in the district was probably over. Did you then say, okay, I'm getting out of prison now, I'm going straight back to the district, I'm going to get women again, or what was your plan at that point?
No, I just wanted some peace and quiet at first. I got out and was a bit settled at first. I was very calm and withdrawn. That definitely left its mark. And then I spent a lot of time at my parents' place. I spent some time with my father before returning to the red light district. I went out partying a bit more often with 1 or 2 childhood friends. There was a time in Hamburg when there were a lot of Turkish events. It was called Kral Club, which means King's Club in Turkish, or Society Club Society. And they would rent locations on the Reeperbahn or around the Reeperbahn, Altona or so, and then they would hold Turkish events there. That was really hyped for a while, and I, also a migrant, was there with the guys too. And the guys here too, and we went to the parties here and there. That was during my partying phase, and initially
So first, the normal adolescence. First,
growing up, I wasn't working initially. I used some of my savings from previous jobs to get by. And then I met my first great love, my first partner. To protect her privacy, I won't name her now. By now, we have nothing to do with each other anymore, except that we have a child together. And I met her at one of these events. And as it sometimes happens, sometimes there's just a quick spark between a man and a woman. That's how it was for us. We went home together that evening, and after that, I never left her side. In the meantime, during that phase,
hey everyone, a quick plug is needed. Take a look at Kassra, the Persian's book, a Spiegel bestseller in this series. Great book. I've read it twice. Of course, it's linked below the videos. My book, Hass macht Gewalt, a Spiegel bestseller, is also linked below the video. You can find it at King among the Kongs, along with other possible knickknacks. The normal thing now would be to say, okay, for many people, that's the leap at that age. How old were you at that time? 18. 18? Well, you could say that maybe in the last years you didn't just sow your wild oats, you almost lost weight in prison. It would almost be the point where you could say, okay, now I'm solid. Many people feel that way. After experiencing everything on the Reeperbahn, they meet a woman and decide they've served their time and are now ready to settle down.
Yeah, that's right. That's how it was. I just forgot something in the chronology. In between, my father opened a late-night kiosk back then. I kind of ran it for him for a while. I mainly worked the register and managed the store. He took care of the administrative tasks and some tax matters. And we did it together. It started well, but I lost interest as it wasn't for me. The job was challenging and not what I expected. It had some fun moments, but I've decided to leave as well. And then we fell out again, and it didn't work because it's like fire and water. We have too many unresolved issues for this to work long term. And
as I mentioned, working together isn't always the best solution, especially one evening.
No, exactly. Most of the time it's not good, yeah. And then it just happened during that time. One evening I was at this party and I met her. And at first she had a very, very positive influence on me. She got pregnant quickly back then. And then she said, hey, you're living. I was just living day by day unemployed. People kept urging me to do something with my life, but I didn't want to be involved in the red light district anymore. She refused that as well, knowing some involved people. She wanted to work properly and build something, especially with a child on the way. Otherwise...
Quickly then that she got pregnant, yeah.
Yeah, it went very quickly, yeah. We got close very fast, and then it was like she set herself up for me like, hey, family, and so on. I said, okay, you're right. You take responsibility for the child that's coming. You have to do proper, solid, reasonable work. That's what I did. And at that time I had, well, it was about half a year maybe, don't hold me to it, but my father sold the Spätkauf for himself and then used the money to open a pub in Norderstedt. He took it over and was very successful with it, and I...
So a soccer field or a club pub from a...
Sports, yes, exactly. And then he completely rebuilt the kitchen from scratch. It was really neglected and all. The previous owner wrecked everything because he fell out with the club management. So then he started from scratch, got the place going. It was very successful, and he hired a chef. And I was very involved in building it up, constructing and bringing things in. Opening a place requires a lot of work. I spent the first 6 months doing that too, working alongside. And then I realized I enjoy cooking, and I had a lot of fun with the chef. We got along well. We also worked together a lot. And cooking is something that if you enjoy it, it can become a real passion, just like other things. And I realized that I enjoy it, and you always get direct feedback from people, whether it was good or bad, by whether they come back or not. In this case, they came back and the chef was cool, so he said, come on, I'll teach you a little bit. He was a master with his own training business. I was with him for about 6 months and enjoyed it. He suggested I do an apprenticeship, saying I had potential and understood the work well.
And you might think the path in life was exactly like that.
It was also on track independently now. The woman had a very positive influence on me. And then I applied. So during my training, through connections from a friend of my father, the son was seeking a chef apprenticeship. He applied for several positions. He received offers from nearly all of them, but ultimately chose one. And I said, man, do you know any training companies that are good, that are fun, and where you don't get worked to death for 15 hours by a company and then just get thrown out with nothing? You know, training is really difficult these days. It was already difficult back then too. And then he said, apply here and there. He's a cool guy. He's a French chef at the Ulster, a very good hotel. And he definitely has a thing for you. Best spot in Hamburg. Exactly, one of the best spots in Hamburg. I called there and he said he wouldn't forget such a nice Frenchman. Yes, I am Monsieur so-and-so. Sure, come by with a French accent. French accent. I thought, hey, cool. And he was really charming, so I thought, okay, let's go. Wrote a little something down, like an application and all that. I went there and convinced him of myself. He said, you know what? You start. A week before training began, he gave me an employment contract and hired me. I was there, ready to go. Without really getting to know the company, without doing an internship, nothing at all, just thrown straight into the deep end. That worked out well for the entire 9 months. Or rather, I was there for 9 months.
Operating?
Eating tasks, chopping onions. Yes, among other things, a neck. They quickly changed their minds after seeing his potential. I was also eager, motivated, and in a good mood. So I didn't see anything as a bad activity because I was up for it. And I saw a lot, I learned a lot. And there were always 2 kitchens. There was a kitchen, which was the buffet kitchen for the hotel, and there was an a la carte restaurant. From 4 stars and up, there has to be a restaurant. They have to have one. And then there was also a wine restaurant. I quickly stood out due to my performance, consistently receiving bonuses, and rapidly advancing to work directly with guests, where I had to cook for them and showcase my best skills. And then I worked upstairs in the a la carte kitchen, and that's already a bit of a badge of honor at such a young age. And of course, I had 1 or 2 people at work who were a bit envious of me because of that. You always have that. Success always attracts envy. That's actually a confirmation of your success, but still, it can also ruin a lot for people. It can also ruin a lot for people if you allow it and focus on it. And there was one of the people involved, it was one of the managers who kind of targeted me, a lady back then and someone else, and that's when conflicts happened. They tried to make my life a bit difficult, kept criticizing me, correcting me, even though I was right. Then there were several conversations, then they started bullying, then there was a bit of racism from the other colleague, and then he got a warning from the management there. But the other one kept going on a factual level, so with factual topics, but just always... Yeah, and then I kept it all inside for many months, and I still remember there was a catering event from the Bismarck family, which is a big family in Hamburg, everyone knows them. Almost nobility. The Bismarcks? Yes, exactly. So von or von Bismarck?
Yes, exactly.
These descendants, a relatively noble family, I would say.
Is
A very, very well-known family who are also very well off financially and had a big event with BMW and so on. We were there on the property back then, prepared a menu and so on. Then I saw Scooter and so on. Back then it was very funny. It was cool. And I also got some feedback from the organizer, or rather from the invited host who actually brought us there. Yeah, and then the next day I had a conflict situation with the lady. It was a woman and she targeted me once, and then we had to do some preparation. I was assigned shifts without overtime and wanted to leave. They allowed everyone else to go but made me stay, saying there was still more work to do. I was asked to prepare 500 or 600 of something, which surprised me. I mentioned that I have a work contract. I'm out, I'm going home now. I don't have to stay here, the others should leave. I don't understand what this is about. Goodbye. You must stay, you're getting a warning. I said I'm leaving now. Goodbye. I walked out, and every apprentice or cook has their own set of knives. And I forgot it in the kitchen, then I went out, took a shower, got dressed, and wanted to get my knife set with the knife bag. And the moment I wanted to get it, she came running like a sprinter, really rushed in and yelled at me from the side into my ear, "Get out of my kitchen in your civilian clothes. Get out of here. You'll see," back and forth. And then back then it was an underground kitchen, very hot, a lot of water, also steam. And I had drunk some water and had the cup in my hand, and then reflexively, because she yelled at me like that, I said, "Get away from me," and poured the water in her face. She reflexively slapped me hard across the face. It wasn't the first time she had done that to someone. She was unfazed. Reflexively, I said, "What?" and slapped her back. I spat at her and she slapped me again. I thought to myself, what is this? And then I took a swing, hit her in the chest, and she flew right across the kitchen. And then that was the end of it. Everyone witnessed it. He initiated the conflict, as you're aware. I still recall having an excellent reputation at that hotel. Then the food and beverage manager, who oversees food service in the hotel, arrived. And I got along very well with him. Suddenly he asked, "What did you do? What's going on here?" And I was always very, 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 yes, charming, very much a gentleman, very calm. He always expressed himself reasonably, never spoke to people in a confrontational way. And that's when I completely lost my composure. "Shut up, get lost, you fag. You keep talking at me. Who do you think you are? You show up here and suddenly act like this. You saw something, but you have no idea what happened. Yeah, get out of here. They're just temporarily on vacation. What's going on here and what's this and all that? Then I am out."
Away.
And then it was over, but
In situations like that, you couldn't either. Was there just this underlying anger in you? I mean, yeah, of course, like whispering in your ear, talking nonsense, steaming mad, and so on. But did you also have little self-control?
no, then I would have hit her. I think.
Sure, of course, I was just about to.
Sorry, let me revise that briefly, not constantly, like how many viewers. Don't get me wrong. It's just that self-control was already lost the moment I hit her. It would have been smart to just, since she physically attacked me, to step back, report it, file a complaint. That would have been the most normal and reasonable way to handle it.
But from real life, that you really lived fully, yes.
That wasn't possible at all. I didn't change. I just went to the job, but I didn't change as a person. I wasn't a better person because of it. I was still the guy with all the crap I did. Just have to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There was still anger and.
Yeah, my mindset was the same. I just thought, okay, I have to work. I held myself back sometimes, but never fully worked through it then. I was in my early 20s and I was far from being the person who today tries to talk with you about these topics.
To talk. But did it take a long time for you to develop that self-control? I know that myself, once I got into an anger tunnel, it was very hard for me to get out. No.
I wasn't hot-tempered, so I wasn't in that moment either. It was more like, "Oh, are you all?" I was surprised she hit me, so I didn't hit back at first. Then I jumped at her, she hit me again, and I immediately retaliated and hit her. So basically, you hit me, then I hit back. So, which of course isn't good. She shouldn't have hit either. The entire situation was catastrophic. But of course, I wasn't even close to where I am now, for example, when we talk about these things.
But wouldn't that have been, were you still on probation at that time?
No, the probation was already over by then.
Or after 2/3 due to probation release? There was a year of probation. Or 1 year of probation and then you probably just barely missed it. Yeah.
That was it. I wasn't reported for that either. She did. It was clear she started it. It was clear she started it. But still, somehow I drew the short straw because I just didn't have any support there.
Well, it's better when you're the smallest light.
Smallest light, and also didn't have an advocate. The French guy, yes, it's bad, really bad, but at the end of the day, he didn't achieve anything in his position either, and dealing with the situation with her because she was a disruptive factor. But hey, at the end of the day, it was a real shame for everyone and also for me big time, but that's just how it happened. And that was the point where I said, okay, and the question will definitely come up in a moment, but now I'm taking this for myself. First of all, for me it was, okay, I tried to do it the normal way, but they put so many obstacles in my way and I was so motivated, I was really excited. Now I'm just like, forget this training, just go work a regular job because it's not working for me. No one listened to me. For several weeks, even months before, I kept talking about it, saying it's not working, we need to do something. And everyone just said, yeah, apprenticeship years are not master years, all that nonsense, but but that doesn't mean you have to let yourself be treated like crap.
It's a slide.
I thought about returning to the red light district, nightlife, and a criminal lifestyle because people tend to forget the past. I was successful there, I was somebody there, I didn't have to be treated by some lady or any gender. Goodbye, now I'm going all the way. And then I went all in again back then.
Yes, we'll get to going all the way in the next part. So, yes, it was a brief attempt, even if you thought, okay, that could have been the opportunity, life could have taken a different path here. Sometimes it also depends on the person you meet. Who knows, maybe you could have met a father figure, you know, someone who would have said, come on, I'll take you under my wing here. I see potential in you. You'll become a really good chef. Maybe you even have the potential to have your own restaurant, a star. I don't know, you know, something like that. Meeting the right people is important. You mentioned not having anyone to advocate for you. And that's why I always say to people who work with young people, give them a chance, stand up for them sometimes. And don't treat them like dirt just because someone is a beginner or can't do as much right now or whatever. But it's crucial to remember that the chancellor is no better than someone who cleans toilets, mows lawns, or does any other job. Exactly. And it's also really...
It's also very, very important, again, Philippe, you said that well. It's also really, really important, especially with young people, adolescents who don't even know who they are yet. And of course, you never know what kind of baggage they bring from home, not to immediately sort people out and throw them away in the first difficult phase, because I think that wouldn't do justice to the situation. Stick with people, but sometimes it's okay to try something 2 or 3 times before giving up. And if he doesn't want to, he just doesn't want to. But I think, especially during difficult times, even in interpersonal relationships, you shouldn't just throw in the towel right away when things get tough, but stick with it. And we're all human, it's not easy. Everyone has good and bad days. You can't know what others are experiencing. That's always very, people are always so quick. They judge very quickly. Ah, that's a Judea. You don't even know what that guy has been through. I don't know. Maybe he was...
Where does he come from? Who is he?
What does he have to do? What is he carrying with him? And maybe he's not even capable of that. And that's why he's trying to build a little empathy and be understanding. This doesn't mean allowing everything to happen to you, but showing some humanity and empathy is important. Comprehension or sensitivity would be appreciated occasionally, especially for
young people. That's a nice closing statement for this part. Kassra, thank you so much for your openness. I think it's not that easy to talk about, especially being spat on with a woman and so on. That's openness. I know it myself when people write comments like, oh my God, what kind of guy is that? But this is about openness. It's about life. Thank you for that, Thorsten. Thank you. Thank you to the community. Thumbs up, thumbs around. Check out the book by Kassra the Persian. Great, entertaining book, guys, like I said, and we'll see each other in part 5. As always, I remain with an ahoy from the coast.